Tracy, host of the Today Show. Today we have a dynamite lineup of guests. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Unstoppable Tracy, your host of the Today Show, and I am over the moon to be inviting the Ontario Chamber of Commerce representatives from a program called Discoverability. Who wouldn't want to be part of a program called Discoverability? And I have with me today, I have Lisa Kelly, and I have the founder of the Discoverability program, Louis Diploma. Louis, can you help me pronounce your last name? De Palma. I should know. Isn't that a famous golfer's name?
I'm not sure, but I can't golf.
Well, I'm not much of a golfer. What about you, Lisa?
Not at all.
Not at all. So we're in good company. We will no longer talk about golf, and instead, we are reporting in today from the Tech Burlington location, which is awesome, here on your TV at Cogeco. And I'm so excited because you guys have a connection with a bunch of programs out here in the Halton and Peel region. Will you start us off by sharing what's the connection?
Yeah, sure. So we have some local chambers of commerce. I'll let Luke jump in here in a minute. But that are very involved in our program, and are actually specific hubs that are really engaging with local employers in the area. You know, just in the last couple of weeks in Mississauga, Brad Butt at the Mississauga Board of Trade has had me present to the HRPA, which resulted in some jobs, a lot of jobs, actually coming up in the Burlington area, or in the Brampton area. So we've also had the Hamilton Chamber of Commerce very, very active, had some local employers, one in Burlington, and another in Hamilton. I know actually have a lot of jobs coming up, so we're really excited to be working with the hubs. Louis, anything you want to add to that I've missed?
No, I think it's excellent what's happening in the Peel-Halton regions. We linked up with chambers both in Milton and Burlington, Oakville, Mississauga, Halton Hills. So we're really working with the employer communities in those different jurisdictions, and we really hope to send the message out about hiring persons with disabilities and all the training that Lisa is doing with companies and service providers.
So which one of you could tell us a little bit about the evolution of Discoverability?
Well, I'll let Louis introduce how we got started. Because he's actually the guy that came up with this idea.
Right, the founder.
Yeah.
Okay, so we started working in this area probably about, I'd say, well over a decade ago. When the AODA came into prominence.
2005.
We started holding presentations across Ontario. We held over 320 presentations in different communities all over the province, that were set up by our local chambers. We talked to businesses. We talked about what they needed to do to comply with the legislation. We talked about inclusivity. We talked about breaking down barriers, dispelling myths. And from there, it became a natural progression to go into discoverability, because what we noticed really quickly, and we had done some of our own surveys through the Ontario Economic Report, where many of our business, in fact, anywhere from 65 to 75% of our businesses were saying to us, their number one issue was finding talent.
Right, trying to get talent. Right?
What a natural progression to go from the AODA into helping job seekers find jobs and businesses find talent, and that's where Discoverability was born. It was put together by 7 or 8 employer associations. We came together, we created a website, we created a portal, we created training, we curated content, and it was employer driven at the time. Now what we have done is we have branched out and we're providing support and service to both service providers and employers. We work with post-secondary institutions, we work with municipalities. We're really trying to be that kind of that glue that holds everything together and really provides people with the information they need.
Wow.
Access. Absolutely.
I'm gonna
Yeah, so Louie, we gotta do some three-way conversation here, our fabulous. So talk about glue. What were you gonna add, Lisa?
Well, so first of all, we are connecting employers to talent. Louis is absolutely right. Everything he said was on point, except it's talent with a disability.
Yes.
It's a specific group. It is talent with a disability. And, the program is targeting employers who value people with a disability, know that they bring a ton of benefits, and want to hire them.
Yes.
So I just wanted to add that on, Louis, because we didn't mention that in your introduction.
Thank you, Lisa.
And don't you love that? Don't you love that we forgot to add the part that the program is for specifically people with disabilities? Like, that is just an add-on. And I also know that you guys are not specific about the identification process. Like, I believe I'm under the understanding. So how do you? Who's included in that group of people with disabilities by your definition?
That's a great question, because I've worked as an employment service provider. So I've worked as an employment counselor at different agencies who work with specific groups of, disability. And that's quite common. But for our purposes, an employer, if you self-identify as having a disability, you should be on our system.
Yeah.
So that's it. No medical proof. We're not going to ask you what the disability is. We will ask you if you need an accommodation, and the employers will ask you that.
Yes.
But it's self-identification. So mental health, physical, learning, developmental, cognitive, visible, invisible, which is 71% of job seekers with a disability.
Right.
So across the spectrum.
It's funny, in Australia right now, a little different from the United Nations, but the International Day of People with Disabilities, the week that's coming up, November 30th, the particular day is December 3rd, but in Australia, their theme for it is that not all disabilities are visible. And as you say, 71%. And so both of you have worked in many fields in working with people with disabilities. I know Lisa was at Odin, and both of you have been a bit of a journey. So what's some of your employment journeys that you found that's consistent as the number one struggle that people with disabilities are finding in breaking into the marketplace?
Well, Louis, why don't we tag team this? You can start, then I'll do one, and we can go back and forth till we hit maybe the top 3 or 4.
Yeah, I think what's important here is a couple of things. I think, as you know, there's a rich talent pool there with persons with disabilities. We got roughly 20% of the population, have noted this in Stats Canada, reporting. So when you take a look at this, from a business perspective, we see 20% of the population, at any given time, there's 50 to 60,000 students in our colleges and universities that have self-declared as having a disability. So this is a really rich talent pool, and as you know, they're not as employed at the same rate as other demographics in our population.
Exponentially.
For us, what we're trying to do, we're really trying to make that connection. We're really trying to educate, provide information, dispel myths. I think myths are one of the things that we really need to dispel, because there are some stigmas out there, and they're unfounded. The research certainly doesn't support them. So what we're trying to do is we meet with all kinds of folks in different communities, whether they're businesses, whether they're service providers, whether they're post-secondary, and we talk about these things. So we're very much an educational support service, which is fantastic. I think the other thing that is a barrier is when you're talking to a lot of small businesses is, they don't have HR departments.
Yeah.
And the president of those companies, they're doing 17 things. So really, you really need to help them get a line of sight to the demographic. You need to help them understand how to recruit, how to advertise, how to onboard. And that's where discoverability comes in. And I'll turn it over to Lisa now, because this is where Lisa does some excellent work in terms of the training that she provides for individuals, both on the job seeker side and on the employment side.
Yeah, so I think Louis touched on the two biggest. So for me, I come at it as a previous employment counselor who worked with people with disabilities.
Yeah.
I come at it from the employment side because I've worked with very large employers and small employers on pilots to integrate people with disability successfully into the workforce. And I come at it as a person with lived experience of disability. It's invisible, but I do have one.
Lisa, thank you for sharing so vulnerably.
No, thank you. Yeah, well, you're easy to talk to. So So I think that there's a couple problems. So from the employer side, one of the big things we see is, where are all these people?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, you know, messaging out there is hide it, mask it, fit in, right?
Yep.
And we're actually doing the opposite, and we're encouraging people not to disclose what the specific medical information is, but that you have a disability and you're part of this talent pool. So our system is solely directed to people who have a disability and are confident to disclose that much. We're not going to ask you what it is or for details or proof, but we just want to know you're part of that equity group. And so that's one thing. So employers, even if they work with an employment service provider who do great work out there, but they may not have the right candidate at the right time with the right skill set for that job. So if they have to be talking to 50, and no small business wants to talk to 50 agencies to find one candidate.
No.
So our system acts as a funnel for people to be able to connect to the employers. So that's number one. The second is probably stigma.
Yeah.
I mean, there's still a lot of misconceptions out there.
Yep.
I do a lot of talk about that, and I think it leads into things like language. What language do we use? People worry so much that they're going to say the wrong thing, and we're in a cancel culture kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to talk about. So I spend a lot of time talking to all three groups from slightly different perspectives. So employers, employment service providers, job seekers, about how we can have productive conversations using the same vocabulary and that it actually moves things forward.
Yes. I think people are afraid of saying the wrong thing, so then they don't talk or speak at all and resist the conversations because of the uncomfortable possibility of having a faux pas. And I think being an ally.
It's across the board too. It's not just disability. We do that with Black, Indigenous people of color. We do that with newcomers. We would rather avoid interviewing a great candidate than saying their name wrong.
Yeah.
Or asking, how do I pronounce your name?
Yes, like me with Louie at the beginning.
That's so great. We just need to say, how do I pronounce that name, Louie, right? And it's the same with a disability.
It seems...
What do you do differently in the workplace?
Yeah, what do you do differently in the workplace? And I don't think what do you do differently in the workplace is relevant in the interview. I think what's relevant in the interview is what you're hiring for. So if it's a customer service job at a call center, you know, so how would you handle an angry customer? I think that's a relevant interview question, but I don't think it's the place during the interview.
So we might ask, what do you need to do differently in the interview in order to communicate your skills and your abilities really clearly? So that might be something like, I would like to submit my answers written. That's okay, that's called accommodation, an interview accommodation. It might be, I don't function well in time to test, so could we not have the time, or could you give me additional time? That's okay.
Yeah.
As long as it's not key to the job, like if you were an emergency medical technician, yeah, I want you doing it within a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
But if you're an employment counselor, you don't really ever face, for instance, those tight timelines.
No.
So you can, in the interview, explain what you need different.
Yes.
You might want to take in a support person.
Or before the interview,
Contact.
like set up and communicate what those, and I've got a friend who needs steno captioning, and everybody keeps coming back with, oh, well, we'll use this platform, and they've got automatic transcription along the way, but the automatic transcription isn't in time, right? It's after the fact, and it doesn't always transcribe accurately, and this is a job interview. So it's very scary. And so educating those employers about the value of steno captioning over automatic live time captioning. Or I love that you said written answer, and you shared a great story with the context of someone with autism. You know, they had the brilliant engineer breakthrough of solutions for this company, but them having people skills during an interview isn't really relevant to their breakthrough ideas. Yeah.
Exactly.
So,
one of my favorite ones is a designer who just didn't have strong verbal skills.
yeah.
So the accommodation we asked for the interview was not to present in person, to just let the design and the ideas that were laid out and how the evolution of the thinking happened speak for itself. And the person was hired without ever an in-person interview. That's amazing. And they are one of the top employees at that company this year.
Oh my goodness. So folks, I am talking...
Do things differently.
Yeah, do things differently. So folks, I'm talking to Lisa Kelly at OCCC, Ontario Chamber of Commerce, and I'm speaking with Louis, and I'm so afraid of saying his name wrong, De Palma, and leaning in close to read Mr. De Palma, the incredible founder of Discoverability, both at the Ontario Chamber of Commerce. And there is a mobile app and a link, I believe, with OCC and also the Disability Channel. Is that right?
I'm not sure, Louis.
Yeah, we have, if you go to our website, discoverability.network, you can get much more information about the Discoverability program, how it works. If you're a job seeker, you can click Job Seeker portal. It'll give you information about job seekers, and you can actually upload your resume into the system. If you're an employer, you come to the same web page, discoverability.network, and there you can click on the employer side, and that's where it provides you with all kinds of information that an employer would need with respect to hiring for the demographic, whether it's the hiring roadmap that Lisa actually developed about 3 or 4 years ago for us. It actually has it's a 6-step roadmap that actually says these are the basic steps that you need to do. It talks about the proper language to use. It talks about accommodation. It talks about how to conduct an interview. All kinds of rich information there. There's also business cases on there for the reasons why you should hire persons with disabilities. Great testimonials. There's some videos. A lot of rich information there. But the beauty about the portal is this: once you put in your resume, and companies come in and they put in their job ad, the job ad will find you because there's algorithms in the system. So it's not a job board. It's actually got these background algorithms where if you meet the requirements of that position, the job ad will be pushed to you, and then you get an opportunity to decide whether you wish to apply or not. In terms of the actual, when you come into the system and you pick one of the filters and if you choose to self-disclose, it's totally confidential, because no company will know that you self-disclosed that you have a disability unless it's a company that's doing targeted recruiting. So if they're pushing a job ad out just for persons with disabilities, that job ad will be pushed to you. The beauty of the system is this: any other job ad that's in the system will also be pushed to you if you meet the requirements of the job ad. So you kind of get the targeted jobs and you get the non-targeted jobs as well. So it's what we're trying to do is, like Lisa said earlier on, have that funnel in where we can help the connection between the employer and the job seeker in as simple as way possible. And then it's up to them to connect and to move forward from there.
Oh, that's phenomenal. I mean, it all sounds amazing, and I know that there's been a big struggle where you have way more employers than you have people with disabilities, but there's an abundance of people with disabilities that are unemployed. And so what do you think is the stopgap in getting these people with disabilities? All of you listeners today, tell your friends, tell your neighbors. Remember, you might not identify with having a disability, but if you fit the description, visible or not, go for this discoverability.com website. Is that right?
It's
Yes.
www.discoverability.network.
.network. Thank you for the correction, Lisa Kelly. And my wonderful Louis said it right. I just got it wrong. .network. But what is it that you think is stopping people with disabilities from jumping on? Maybe it's just not knowing about it.
It's getting the word out.
Yeah, I think it's getting the word out. I think that a lot of times people hesitate to self-identify because they see it as a negative. I don't. Right? But I think there's a lot of messaging that we need to do around that. And so when I go out and I say that we have employers from small to large, I mean, people should understand there are companies that see this as a value. It drives innovation. It drives different perspectives. So I think that's...
And that's who's on this Discoverability app. Right? So maybe you choose not to disclose for a job interview you find on yourself, but if you're going through Discoverability, you can disclose.
So I think even people sometimes don't understand. I'm not sure that we do a great job about helping people understand their disabilities and also understanding what we focus on the medical part of it and not on where are the gaps, the differences. And if we focus on, and when I say differences, I don't mean appearance or behaviors. It's like what needs to change in the workplace for that person to work. That's an easy thing to fix. Right?
Or if at all.
Yeah, if we try to fix a medical, doesn't help. I'm not a doctor. But if we focus on where is the gap, so do you need flexible hours? Do you need to start a little later? Do you need more frequent breaks? Those are pretty simple things for employers to address. So we focus, and I think a lot of times people, Tracy, don't even know what they need.
And there's no cost to those.
Exactly. So, even ergonomic workstations, that's pretty standard. That's the #1 accommodation in Canada. That's pretty standard across most organizations now.
Yeah.
They're very low cost. 60% of accommodations cost nothing.
Yeah.
Right?
Under 500, I think.
No, actually, 60% cost nothing.
Oh.
93% cost $500 or less, a one-time cost.
Whew, it's so affordable and not a hindrance. So employers listening, did you hear that? It's not cost inhibitive. And people with disabilities listening, do you hear this? The companies on Discoverability's platform, .network, is keen to leverage your innovation and your way of problem solving because you have a disability, either acquired or born that way.
We know that people with disabilities also make fantastic employees in general, not everybody, but in general. We know that they stay longer in the job, they work as productively, they work more safely, they take fewer days off. So, if you told the employer, I can access talent like that, why would you not want to sign up?
Yeah, it's so funny, like there's a myth that there'd be more sick days, and in fact, statistically, there's way, way less.
That's correct.
So, here with the Disability Channel and with your TV and Cogeco and Burlington and in Milton, and you've got these incredible alliances with every one of our listeners that are tuning in today. There's so many opportunities here to be either employer or person with a disability to be connecting through discoverability.network. And I'm so proud and glad to have Louis on the show. I got to talk to Louis early on in the evolution when he was trying to recruit more people in, and you've been through many evolutions, and so now it's really polished and thriving. And so will you share again your information with our listeners?
So if you are interested in training, you can reach out to me. Or you're an employer, Lisa Kelly at occ.ca. That's my email. If you are looking to get help signing up on our platform, you can contact Boyan, BOYAN, MITROVIC @occ.ca. And most importantly, if you want to sign up, create in a type of LinkedIn type profile. So you don't have to worry about resumes. This profile that's kept private, as Louis said, www.discoverability.network. Incredible.
Thank you so much for letting me know your information. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Louis?
Just to thank you very much for having us on and sharing the information about Discoverability. Hopefully we've reached a good audience that like the information, and they'll go to the website and get additional information about connecting with employers, and employers about connecting with persons with disabilities.
Fabulous. And so a closing positive tip for people with disabilities?
I think focus on what you're able to do. Focus on your strengths, just like any other job seeker. Be patient. We're in COVID. It's hard for everyone, unfortunately. But understand there are a lot of employers out there that value the contributions you bring. Sign up.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. So you have been listening to Lisa Kelly with the Ontario Chamber of Commerce and Louis Del Palma on Ontario Chamber of Commerce with the Discoverability program on your TV channel, Cogeco, but this is the Today Show, and I am Unstoppable Tracy. Thanks for watching. Tune in on Mondays at 12:30. We'll be right back after these messages.